Our country is out of control. People are pouring across the southern border.
Indiscriminate floods of illegals across our borders.
Day one of my presidency, they're getting out.
Deport every illegal alien in the United States immediately.
I will build a security fence.
There was a building anger about immigration. Send Washington a message.
I don't think anybody imagined what was going to happen next.
Illegal immigration is a serious problem in California.
The number of people crossing illegally is running at record pace.
Every night, the groups would gather on the Mexican side, waiting for the sun to go down. And they would gather by the hundreds, if not the thousands. And at a certain point, the groups would just sort of charge across the border.
It's been dubbed the Bonsai Dash. Human waves overwhelm border guards and race into California despite the oncoming traffic.
The number of Border Patrol agents was totally inadequate, so it was totally out of control.
In the early 90s, the news was filled with images of undocumented immigrants crossing into California. They were coming into a state in the middle of a recession, caused primarily by the loss of manufacturing jobs. But immigrants quickly got the blame.
Groups worried and angry about the impact of rampant immigration are multiplying.
People are losing their jobs left and right. And they felt this was because of the influx of illegals coming in, taking their jobs.
Robert Kiley was a political consultant. He and his wife started working with grassroots citizen groups who were angry that undocumented immigrants were using taxpayer-funded social services.
When you went to the hospital, to the emergency, they were full of people there that weren't from this country. They were illegals. They were getting medical services free. Schools were being impacted. Cities were being impacted.
The Kileys helped come up with a plan, Proposition 187, a ballot initiative that would deny government benefits to undocumented immigrants.
The idea was, let's make California an unfriendly place for people who are here illegally, with hope that no more would come and that those that were here would leave.
Their children would be kicked out of public schools. Educators and healthcare workers would be required to report anyone they suspect of being illegal.
It was considered an extreme idea by Democrats and some Republicans, who said it would unfairly target immigrants for the state's economic trouble.
The immigrants that were coming here were doing jobs that nobody wanted to do. They were farm workers, they were people who were janitors, they were maids.
Opponents labeled Proposition 187 immoral and racist.
Taking innocent children and throwing them out on the streets, that somehow is going to solve our illegal immigration problem is simply fallacious. I think it is.
People thought it wasn't really going to have much of a chance. But it turned out it hit a nerve.
More than 600,000 Californians have signed petitions calling for a halt to services illegal residents receive.
And then it got picked up by the politicians.
Republican Governor Pete Wilson, in a tight race for re-election, threw his campaign behind Prop 187.
Republican Governor Pete Wilson asking the state with the highest unemployment to give him a second term. Wilson says, don't blame him, blame illegal immigrants.
The federal government won't stop them at the border, yet requires us to pay billions to take care of them.
Wilson's campaign ad felt like a personal attack to Kevin De Leon, even though he was a citizen. His mother had come to California illegally before becoming a legal resident.
It was something that was deeply personal because I witnessed my mother, I witnessed my aunt who worked their fingers to the bone, who helped build this economy.
For Hispanics, the largest immigrant group in the state, it has become a highly emotional issue.
That politicians were scapegoating, demonizing, looking for someone to blame. That's not the America that I know.
De Leon didn't have much experience in politics, but he helped organize anti-187 marches.
And they all brought Mexican flags. And boy, that ticked off a lot of people. That polarized the issue. Polarized it. Are you for it or against it?
The tensions just hit a fever pitch. As a young Latino, I felt unease, I think for the first time in my own city, my own country, my own state where I'd grown up.
Yes, Prop 187! Time to get out, stop!
Prop 187 was an expression of unhappiness with a community that was rapidly becoming less and less white. There was a kind of anxiety, anger, rejection out there in the country.
Proposition 187 and Pete Wilson won in a landslide. But the courts ruled that only the federal government can regulate immigration, and Prop 187 never went into effect.
What happened almost immediately after is a surge of citizenship applications and of people saying they were going to vote. 1 million new registered voters who were Latino in California.
I thought for the very first time, perhaps we have to run for office. Enough with the demonization, enough with the scapegoating. We want to be full-fledged Americans. We want to have our voices heard. We want to have a say.
Kevin De Leon did run for office, and 20 years after Prop 187, he became the first Latino president of the state Senate in more than a century.
My story should not be the exception. My story should be the rule.
He and other Latino politicians have helped make California one of the most liberal and immigrant-friendly states in the country, a change fueled by a long-term demographic shift in the state.
It's not just the rise of the Latino vote that has turned California so blue. From the mid-1990s up until the early part of this decade, there's a mass exodus of white working-class voters. They went to surrounding states. They were being replaced by younger, poor immigrant voters. And that combined, that mix, is what has made California the bluest state in the Union.
But Proposition 187 had an impact beyond California. Even though it never went into effect, it added fuel to an immigration crackdown that spread across the country in the mid-90s.
It was Prop 187 that began the anti-immigration fever, a fever which has now spread to Washington.
Immigration went to the top of the agenda. The Clinton administration started ratcheting up immigration enforcement efforts because they were scared to death of what Prop 187 symbolized.
Calls for additional border barriers, expedited deportations, and for local police to enforce immigration law started to grow. And it was a Democrat who signed those ideas into law.
Our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
It was a really fundamental change in the way the federal government goes about enforcing immigration policy, and created the basis for the large-scale removals that we've experienced in this country for the last 10 years.
We'll build the wall, but who's going to pay for the wall?
Today, immigration is dividing much of the country, and there are echoes of Proposition 187, from the anger to the rhetoric.
They come over to the border. They have the baby in the United States. We now take care of that baby. Social Security, Medicare, education. Give me a break.
But this time, it's small towns and rural counties in the Midwest that are seeing some of the fastest growth in diversity. Many of those counties are just starting to go through a demographic shift. And Harvard professor Ryan Enos found that change made President Trump's message resonate.
As a proportion of Latinos in a county grew, the probability of voters voting for Trump increased with that. And a lot of these voters that did were white Democrats. These were places like Ohio, Pennsylvania, where historically there's been a very small proportion of Latinos, and that proportion went up very quickly. And that led to this classic backlash effect.
It's this mix of economic insecurity combined with dramatic changes in our demography. We're seeing the story replay itself.
The Trump administration issuing these new guidelines, cracking down on illegal immigration.
The sweeping plan to potentially deport millions of undocumented immigrants.
It's really hard to tell the seeds of what's going on around you when it's happening. I don't think anybody knew how significant Prop 187 would be at the time. I don't think anybody had any idea that we'd be where we are today on the immigration issue.